Hello friends. Let's talk about someone who's not just a Gemini, and not just born in the year of the rooster, but a rare blend of both. Imagine the wild curiosity of Gemini, combined with the fierce pride, discipline, and swagger of the Chinese rooster. That's not a personality, that's a force of nature. If you've ever met someone who speaks 3 languages, multitasks like a supercomputer, flirts effortlessly, keeps a mental spreadsheet of their 5-year goals, and somehow makes it all look easy, you might just be dealing with a Gemini rooster. So who are these people? What drives them in love, marriage, sex, business, and what secrets do they keep in the shadows? Let's dive deep. Personality snapshot. Gemini roosters are the kind of people you notice, not because they demand attention, but because their energy fills a room before they even speak. There's an undeniable magnetism to them. It's not rooted in vanity or flashiness, though they rarely shy away from dressing sharp. It comes from something deeper, a mental sharpness, an alert presence that always seems a step ahead. These individuals don't just observe the world, they decode it, constantly pulling patterns out of chaos, connecting ideas across disciplines, and asking the kinds of questions that others haven't even thought of yet. Their minds operate in overdrive, buzzing with ideas, spinning scenarios, flipping perspectives. They live in a state of active inquiry, and that restlessness is both a gift and a burden. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Gemini rooster personality is their blend of idealism and execution. Most people fall into one of 2 camps, the dreamers or the doers. But this unique hybrid manages to inhabit both worlds. The Gemini side generates possibilities, thrives in the realm of what if, and possesses an endless curiosity for the unknown. The rooster side, however, insists on results. It demands order, structure, clarity, and a sense of pride in one's accomplishments. That combination means that these individuals aren't just filled with ideas, they're obsessed with making them real. They have no patience for vague intentions or messy, unfinished work. If they believe in something, they pursue it with near military discipline. They're natural performers, but not in the superficial sense. Yes, they can command a stage, turn a conversation into an event, and make small talk feel like theater. But what sets them apart is the substance behind the show. They usually know exactly what they're talking about, and they've done the homework. Gemini roosters don't bluff. They might embellish for effect, sure, but they despise being caught off guard or proven wrong in public. They work hard to stay informed, and that intellectual integrity gives them the confidence to speak with authority. They crave that feeling of being the one people turn to for answers, the one who sets the tone. And they rarely disappoint. That said, Gemini roosters live with a constant battle between consistency and stimulation. Boredom is their kryptonite. Once they feel like they've mastered a topic, person, or environment, they start looking for an exit, or at the very least, a new challenge. They don't like repetition, they don't respond well to stagnation, and they can become visibly restless in routines that others find comforting. This doesn't mean they're unreliable, far from it, but their loyalty and focus are conditional. You've got to keep feeding their curiosity, challenging them intellectually, and offering them new ways to evolve. If life becomes too predictable, they'll mentally check out, even if their body stays present. There's a duality in their emotional nature that often goes unspoken. On the surface, they're expressive, witty, confident, even flamboyant at times. But under that charisma lies a deep sensitivity. Gemini roosters are extremely aware of how others perceive them. They may brush off criticism with humor or logic, but internally, they're analyzing every word, every tone. They're not just thinkers, they're feelers too, though they rarely admit it. This internal world is usually kept guarded. While they may seem open, truly knowing a Gemini rooster requires time, patience, and a rare kind of emotional intelligence. And once you do get through that maze of defenses, you'll discover a surprisingly loyal, thoughtful, and even vulnerable human being. One who craves understanding as much as they crave achievement. Ultimately, the Gemini rooster is a paradox of fire and air, speed and precision, performance and privacy. They are brilliant and unpredictable, structured and spontaneous, playful and intense. You can't pin them down, and you shouldn't try. The best way to appreciate them is to let them evolve, because change isn't just part of who they are. It is who they are. Love, the unfinished novel. Falling in love for a Gemini Rooster is not a gradual descent, it's an immediate plunge. One moment, they're casually observing the world, and the next, someone catches their eye, says the right thing at the right time, and boom, they're mentally writing sonnets. Love, for them, begins with a spark that feels almost cinematic, full of promise, tension, and unspoken excitement. But it's not just about butterflies or romantic fantasy, it's about intellectual seduction. They want their hearts to race, yes, but more importantly, they want their minds to be activated. For Gemini Roosters, emotional attraction is inextricably linked to curiosity. If you can't keep them guessing, wondering, thinking, or laughing, your chances of holding their attention drop to zero. They fall in love with minds first, souls second, and bodies third, and ideally, all three are firing at once. The beginning of a romance with a Gemini Rooster can feel like stepping into a whirlwind. They'll text you paragraphs, send you links to obscure ideas, share their playlists, introduce you to strange books and bold theories. This is not just flirting, it's an initiation. They're inviting you into their world, and they're hoping you're bold enough to invite them into yours. They love debates disguised as dates, conversations that zigzag between philosophy and pop culture, and banter that makes them feel like they're dancing with your mind. Routine kills their desire faster than anything else. If the dynamic starts to feel predictable or emotionally flat, they'll instinctively begin to pull back. It doesn't mean they don't care, it means they can't breathe in stagnation. Love must be a living thing, always evolving, never locked into a script. Despite their romantic intensity, Gemini Roosters aren't emotionally needy. In fact, they often need space just as much as they need connection. They're not afraid to disappear for a day or bury themselves in work or thought, not because they're losing interest, but because they require autonomy to stay sane. The moment they feel smothered, controlled, or boxed in, they'll start dreaming of escape. Ironically, the more you try to tie them down, the more they slip through your fingers. But if you give them breathing room, emotional freedom, intellectual respect, and the occasional moment to disappear into their own head, they'll stay. Not out of obligation, but because they want to. Gemini Roosters also have a distinct and unusual way of expressing affection. It's rarely traditional. They may not always remember anniversaries or say, "I love you," every day, but they'll challenge your thinking, encourage your growth, and defend your honor with surgical precision. They believe love is a collaboration, an ongoing conversation, and their form of care is often expressed in nudging you out of your comfort zone. They'll joke with you relentlessly, point out your blind spots, and dare you to be better, not out of criticism, but because they see your potential and refuse to let it go to waste. They test you not to hurt you, but to pull you closer. Every question, every bit of sarcasm, every unexpected philosophical dive is an invitation to intimacy, if you can see through the mask. When a Gemini Rooster truly falls, when they find someone who challenges them mentally, respects their independence, and keeps the relationship electric without suffocating, that's when the magic happens. All the charm, the brilliance, the fast-talking cleverness slows down into something warmer, deeper, and more deliberate. They'll start to share not just their ideas, but their fears. They'll let their guard down, not just with their words, but with their silences. They'll begin to prioritize not just what excites them, but what grounds them. That's when love turns from an unfinished novel into something closer to a living manuscript, co-written day by day, full of plot twists, character growth, and the kind of connection that doesn't just endure, but evolves. They may never be the most conventional lovers. They may never settle fully into domestic bliss, or find satisfaction in the predictable rhythms that some people crave. But if you're looking for a love that's alive, one that keeps growing, challenging, deepening, and daring you to become your most vibrant self, then there may be no match quite like the Gemini Rooster. Because for them, love isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of the most brilliant chapter. Marriage, a partnership with purpose. For the Gemini Rooster, marriage isn't just a milestone or a societal expectation. It's a deliberate decision, made after intense analysis, deep reflection, and usually several rounds of second-guessing. Despite their light-hearted surface, the flirtation, the humor, the endless ability to charm, when they say, "I do," it's not an impulsive act. It's strategic, purposeful, calculated. To them, marriage is not about finding someone to complete them, but someone to build something with. It's a fusion of two lives, two minds, two ambitions, much like a business merger, where the emotional and the practical must align. They won't settle for surface-level attraction or traditional security. The person they choose must bring more than affection. They must bring inspiration, intelligence, and long-term compatibility with their ever-evolving vision. At the heart of this approach is the Gemini Rooster's craving for a balanced dynamic. They need a partner who gives them freedom, but not chaos. Structure, but not suffocation. It's a fine line, and not everyone can walk it. Beneath the charm, these individuals are often quietly driven by long-range plans and serious internal expectations. A successful marriage for them is one where their partner not only understands their ambitions, but actively supports them, intellectually, emotionally, and in practical terms. They don't want a cheerleader. They want a collaborator, someone who can challenge their thinking, co-create the future, and pivot when necessary. A partner who treats the relationship not as a static institution, but as an evolving enterprise, open to reinvention and growth. Yet for all their commitment to shared goals, routine can be the kiss of death in a Gemini Rooster marriage. They're not wired for monotony. If the relationship settles into too much predictability, same conversations, same conflicts, same rituals played out without freshness, their spirit begins to wilt. They may not say it out loud at first. They may try to reignite the fire quietly. But if those efforts go unnoticed or unreciprocated, a kind of slow mental withdrawal begins. They might dive into work, social connections, solo hobbies, anything that offers variety, excitement, and a new narrative. And in some cases, yes, their attention may wander into emotional or romantic territory outside the marriage, not always out of betrayal, but out of desperation for aliveness. That's the real fuel they seek, not just love, but vitality. The key to maintaining a strong marriage with a Gemini Rooster is continued curiosity about each other, about the world, about the relationship itself. They thrive in partnerships where surprise is welcomed, not feared. Where you're both still discovering new things about each other after 5, 10, 20 years. Where conversations don't shrink over time but expand. Encourage their eccentric ideas. Indulge in spontaneous adventures. Respect their alone time, and never stop evolving yourself. If they see that you are growing, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, they will stay engaged. They don't expect perfection, but they do expect dynamism. Above all, what the Gemini Rooster truly needs in marriage is a witness and a teammate. Someone who sees their dual nature, the part that wants to soar freely and the part that wants to build a legacy, and embraces both. They want to be admired for their brilliance, yes, but also for their effort. For the way they balance imagination with execution. For the courage it takes to keep reinventing themselves, even when it's uncomfortable. If you can honor that complexity, and match it with your own, you'll have a partner who is loyal, passionate, endlessly surprising, and deeply invested in the life you're building together. Marriage, for a Gemini Rooster, is not a resting place. It's a launch pad. Sex, a mind game and a playground. Sex with a Gemini Rooster isn't just about the body, it's about the dance of intellect, energy, and imagination. Before a single touch is exchanged, the true arousal begins in the space between words. Their most sensitive erogenous zone? The mind. They don't just want to be desired, they want to be mentally seen. A look across the room that says, "I know what you're thinking." A flirtatious challenge wrapped in irony. A debate over something wildly esoteric that somehow turns into foreplay. This is where it starts. They respond to brains, to sharp language, to unexpected insights whispered in the dark. They crave partners who don't just talk dirty, but talk smart, the kind who can quote poetry 1 minute and switch to a subversive conspiracy theory the next. Conversation isn't the lead up to sex, it is sex. Or at least, the beginning of it. Once that mental spark is ignited, Gemini roosters become fearless adventurers in the bedroom. They are deeply sensual, aware of textures, sounds, pacing, and scent, and even more aware of the emotional choreography happening beneath the surface. They pay attention, not just to how their partner moves, but to how they respond to newness, suggestion, unpredictability. They're not into formulaic encounters or obligatory romance. They want every experience to feel slightly uncharted, like you're both discovering a new version of yourselves in real time. One night could be full of slow-burning candlelight, poetry read aloud, and music that builds into a cinematic crescendo. The next might involve costumes, whispered dares, hotel keys, or a wild idea hatched mid-conversation. The goal isn't just pleasure. It's exploration, of sensation, of each other, of the edges of comfort and the thrill of transgression. Variety, above all, is their oxygen. Monotony is a slow death. Even in long-term relationships, the Gemini rooster needs the erotic experience to feel alive, fresh, spontaneous. If it becomes mechanical, the same positions, same locations, same rhythms, their desire quietly begins to dim. They might still show up physically, but their mind will be elsewhere, wandering through fantasies they no longer feel comfortable sharing. And once that mental disconnection sets in, it becomes difficult to reignite the fire. This is not about selfishness, it's about how deeply they link sex to vitality. When it no longer feels like an extension of their creative spirit, it loses meaning. Now, this is where things can get complicated. Because while Gemini roosters are passionate and often loyal when emotionally invested, they are also naturally curious, not just about their partners, but about human intimacy itself. If a relationship begins to flatline emotionally or sexually, they may seek stimulation elsewhere. This doesn't always mean physical infidelity. Sometimes it's more subtle. A flirtation that goes too far, a fantasy kept secret, an emotional entanglement that fills a void they haven't articulated. They don't cheat to betray. They drift to feel alive again, to recapture the spark that once made the connection thrilling. The tragedy is that many partners don't realize what they're missing until the Gemini rooster is already emotionally elsewhere. But when the connection is right, when it's mutual, curious, emotionally intelligent, and full of surprises, then sex with a Gemini rooster becomes something profound. It's not just physical release. It's transformation. It's two people writing a new language together, one that fuses trust and daring, intellect and impulse, intimacy and independence. They are tender when you least expect it, and wild when you most need it. They intuit where to take the experience next, often before you can even voice your desires. And they want to be remembered, not just as good lovers, but as unforgettable ones. The kind who left fingerprints not just on your body, but on your imagination. If you want to keep a Gemini rooster engaged sexually, keep growing with them. Learn new things together, share wild dreams, be vulnerable and bold at once. Surprise them, not just with what you wear or where you take them, but with who you're becoming. Make them feel that you, too, are ever evolving. Because for them, sex isn't a final destination. It's an ever-expanding frontier. Friendship, inner circle equals inner sanctum. To the outside world, a Gemini rooster seems like everyone's best friend. They move through rooms like a magnet, engaging, expressive, funny in that razor-sharp, blink and you'll miss it kind of way. People are drawn to them. They attract attention without trying, and their ability to connect across social and cultural boundaries is nothing short of a superpower. They know how to read a room, change tones, adapt to different personalities, and make people feel seen, for a moment. But here's the twist. While their network is massive, their true friendships are few and sacred. Most people they interact with are orbiters, casual acquaintances, professional allies, temporary companions on the road of life. But the real ones, the inner circle, that's a different universe altogether. A Gemini rooster's inner circle is small, curated, and fiercely protected. They might appear to be open books, talkative, transparent, always telling stories, but don't be fooled. What they're sharing in public is often a performance, a version of the truth crafted for entertainment or social cohesion. Their real emotions, their failures, insecurities, and fears, those are locked behind layers of sarcasm, redirection, and quick subject changes. Only a handful of people have ever truly seen what lies beneath the showmanship. And if you're one of them, it means you've passed 1,000 invisible tests. Loyalty under pressure, emotional depth, discretion, and the ability to challenge them without wounding their pride. It means you didn't just laugh at their jokes. You understood why they needed to make them in the first place. Once you're in that rarefied space, that inner sanctum of trust, you'll experience a different side of the Gemini Rooster entirely. This is the version most people never get to see, the one who will show up at your door at 2 a.m. without being asked. The one who remembers your weird childhood dream and sends you an article about it 10 years later. The one who can sit with you in silence, no performance necessary. They are exceptionally loyal to those they love, sometimes to their own detriment. They'll defend you like a courtroom lawyer, hype you up like a personal PR agent, and drag you out of your own spiral with biting humor and zero tolerance for self-pity. Their friendship is both a safety net and a trampoline. You'll never hit the ground, and they'll always bounce you higher than you thought you could go. But that level of friendship comes with rules, often unspoken, but absolutely enforced. The Gemini Rooster has a long memory. If you betray their trust, even just once, they may smile through it, laugh it off, act like it's no big deal. But don't be fooled, they're processing, recording, and recalibrating. Forgiveness is possible, but it's rarely immediate and almost never complete. They might keep you around, but you'll feel the distance. You'll sense the warmth cooling. Their boundaries are now up, and once that door starts to close, it rarely opens all the way again. It's not about vengeance, it's about self-preservation. They've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves full access to their truth. That said, if you remain loyal, genuine, and willing to grow alongside them, the friendship with a Gemini Rooster is one of life's greatest gifts. It will evolve with time, just as they do. It won't always be smooth. They're intense, complex, occasionally moody, and often lost in their own world, but it will always be meaningful. They'll challenge your blind spots, celebrate your weirdness, and push you to become a sharper version of yourself. And when life gets hard, they'll be there, not just to offer advice, but to sit in the storm with you, no questions asked. To call a Gemini Rooster your friend is an honor. To be called their friend? That's a legacy. One built not on time, but on truth. Business, the boss with a brain. Gemini Roosters enter the business world like they were dropped from the sky into the center of the action, with urgency, vision, and no interest in playing small. These are the natural-born starters, the ones who treat every idea like it might be their next empire. Whether it's launching a digital brand, restructuring a chaotic team, or sketching out a new tech concept on a napkin at 2 a.m., they are always building. Business, for them, isn't just about money or success, it's about expression, impact, and proving they can turn ideas into influence. They don't dream with limits, and they don't execute halfway. From the first pitch to the final presentation, there's a sense of kinetic purpose in everything they do, like they know the world is watching, and they fully intend to impress it. Their power comes from the explosive combination of Gemini mental agility and Rooster-level precision. The Gemini side of them is restless, visionary, constantly absorbing trends, analyzing patterns, predicting market shifts. They're the ones in meetings throwing out 10 brilliant ideas in 5 minutes, and then reworking them in real time as the feedback rolls in. But it's the Rooster in them that gets it done. That part brings discipline, detail, and a meticulous sense of standards. They don't just want things to work, they want them to be flawless. Their presentations are polished, their branding is tight, and their emails read like mini masterpieces of persuasion. They can switch between CEO and creative director without blinking, one moment mapping out quarterly revenue targets, the next choosing a font for the product packaging. They are, quite literally, the boss with a brain. But make no mistake, they demand a lot, and they don't apologize for it. Gemini Roosters are notorious for setting high expectations, not just for others, but for themselves. They despise laziness. They have no patience for sloppy work, vague plans, or people who waste time with excuses. If you show up unprepared or deliver anything less than your best, don't expect a second chance. They value efficiency, intelligence, and execution, and if you're not operating on that level, you'll quickly find yourself replaced, or simply ignored. They're not cruel, they're focused. They've got too many ideas and too little time to carry dead weight. They surround themselves with people who can keep up, think fast, and act even faster. Still, they're not dictators, far from it. The best way to thrive under or alongside a Gemini Rooster in business is to trust them and give them space. Micromanaging them is a death sentence. They hate being boxed in by outdated rules, rigid systems, or overbearing authority. What they crave is trust, flexibility, and loyalty. If you prove you can deliver, consistently and creatively, they'll elevate you. If you bring them bad news but do it with integrity, they'll respect you more for it. Just never lie, and never bluff. They spot dishonesty instantly, and once they question your authenticity, the relationship never fully recovers. Be sharp, be accountable, pivot fast. They don't expect perfection, they expect progress, and they notice every single move you make toward it. At their best, Gemini Roosters are visionary builders and magnetic leaders. They have the ability to rally teams around abstract goals and make those goals feel urgent, exciting, and possible. They're exceptional at branding, not just products, but people. They see potential in ideas and in talent that others might overlook. They inspire loyalty because they know how to light up a room, frame a mission, and make you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. But it only works if they're personally engaged. The second they feel boxed in, creatively stifled, or surrounded by incompetence, they start pulling away. Their energy shifts, their brilliance dims, and sometimes, they'll torch the whole thing just to start over, not out of recklessness, but out of a need to breathe and build again. If you want to thrive with a Gemini Rooster in the business world, whether you're their partner, employee, or collaborator, meet them at the level they live on. Think big, move fast, take risks, and never forget, for them, business isn't just a career. It's the purest form of creative expression, and winning the game is only half as important as rewriting the rules. Dark sides, the shadows behind the shine. Every brilliance casts a shadow, and for the Gemini Rooster, that shadow is as complex, compelling, and at times dangerous as their light. These individuals shine so brightly in public, full of insight, ambition, and magnetic charm, that many people never guess what's simmering beneath. But behind every perfectly delivered one-liner and every brilliant idea is a deep inner pressure that rarely lets up. Gemini Roosters often carry a silent burden, the fear that they're not living up to their own impossible standards. This internal intensity can manifest as arrogance, not because they think they're better than everyone else, but because they're terrified of seeming less than. They mask vulnerability with control, and when that control slips, when things don't go according to plan, the emotional consequences are sharp, sudden, and often self-inflicted. One of the most difficult aspects of their shadow is their impatience, not just with others, but with themselves. Gemini Roosters live in a constant state of mental velocity. They think fast, move fast, decide fast. When people around them can't keep up, they grow restless, irritated, sometimes dismissive. Their expectations for efficiency and excellence can create a cold, critical tone, especially under pressure. They rarely mean to be harsh, but their words, sharpened by Gemini wit and Rooster precision, can cut deep. And unlike some signs who lash out and regret it later, Gemini Roosters tend to stand by what they say, because in their mind, it's not emotion, it's logic. This makes conflict with them feel unusually personal, even when it's not. They don't yell, they dissect. They don't explode, they undermine. It's not about volume, it's about impact. Another dangerous thread in their darker makeup is their tendency to intellectualize emotion. When faced with something painful, confusing, or deeply intimate, their first instinct isn't to feel, it's to analyze. They retreat into their heads, turning emotional chaos into a mental equation, as if solving it could make the discomfort disappear. This coping mechanism works, until it doesn't. The problem is that life, especially human relationships, can't be cracked like code. And when they realize that intellect can't fix everything, they spiral. Their normally quick-thinking minds become loops of overanalysis. They replay conversations, second-guess decisions, question intentions, not just others but their own. This overthinking can become paralyzing, robbing them of joy and connection, even when all external signs point to success. Underneath this mental storm is something they almost never admit: anxiety. The pressure to perform, to impress, to evolve constantly. It comes with a cost. Gemini roosters rarely talk about this vulnerability, even to their closest people. They fear being seen as weak, or worse, ordinary. So instead, they throw themselves into work, ideas, distractions. They chase stimulation and perfection, hoping that if they move fast enough, the fear won't catch up. But it always does. In moments of quiet, in the space between wins, their confidence can crack, just a little, and that crack reveals a raw, unsettled part of them that never fully rests. They carry this alone, because their public image is too important to them. And because, deep down, they believe their struggle is part of the price of their brilliance. Lastly, their emotional inconsistency can be baffling to the people who love them. One day, they're affectionate, hilarious, totally present. The next, they're cold, distracted, or simply gone. This isn't because they don't care, it's because their emotional rhythm lags behind their mental one. They process everything intellectually first, and only later, sometimes much later, do they feel the full emotional weight of an experience. This delay creates confusion for others, and often guilt for the Gemini rooster. They don't always know how to explain why they vanished or snapped or couldn't respond when someone needed them. They wish they could be more stable, more grounded. But their reality is more chaotic, driven by impulses they can't always control and emotions they don't always understand until they've already caused damage. The truth is, Gemini roosters aren't heartless or cold. They're simply human, brilliant, flawed, and fiercely self-protective. Their shadows aren't there to destroy them. They're reminders of their depth, of the pressure they carry, and of the emotional work still to be done. And if they ever choose to face those shadows head-on, there's no limit to how powerful and how whole they could truly become. Life goals, legacy, not just luxury. Gemini roosters are not here to decorate the world, they're here to redefine it. Behind their charm, style, and social magnetism lies a powerful internal compass pointing toward one unshakable objective: meaningful impact. While many are distracted by temporary applause, flashy wins, or follower counts, Gemini roosters are playing a far more strategic game. They are architects of ideas, not just consumers of ambition. Their ultimate goal isn't a trophy, it's a legacy, a movement, a thought that outlives them. They want to leave behind something that changes how people think, behave, or create. Something permanent. Whether it's a company, a philosophy, a body of work, or a cultural shift, they are drawn to pursuits that ripple outward. They don't chase trends, they set them. They don't mimic greatness, they build it. This isn't about ego, though their confidence might suggest otherwise. It's about a sense of personal destiny that burns in their core. Gemini roosters have no interest in living a quiet or ordinary life. The idea of fading into the background is terrifying to them, not because they need attention, but because they're wired to contribute at scale. They were born thinking big, big systems, big visions, big change. And because of this, they naturally gravitate toward bold, often risky goals. They're not afraid of shaking things up. In fact, they're suspicious of safety. It usually means stagnation. They'd rather try and fail spectacularly than coast in mediocrity. When you talk to them about the future, their eyes light up not at the thought of retirement or luxury, but at the idea of disruption. They want to matter, in the history books, in their industry, in their family, in their lifetime. One of the most defining qualities of their ambition is its deeply intellectual and cultural nature. They don't just want wealth, they want influence. Influence over minds, narratives, frameworks. They want to shift conversations, shape discourse, and create ideas so powerful they echo long after they're gone. Whether it's through writing, speaking, teaching, building businesses, or pioneering a new way of thinking, Gemini roosters are drawn to platforms where their voice can make an imprint. And they don't settle for being a part of the discussion, they want to lead it. They want to be the one who says the thing no one else is brave or brilliant enough to say. The one whose words or creations are quoted, studied, remembered. To them, that's the truest form of wealth, to shape reality through thought. What makes this drive even more compelling is their fearless ability to reinvent. Gemini roosters don't set one goal and cling to it for decades. They evolve. Their vision evolves. What started as a startup might become a foundation. What began as a book idea might morph into a digital platform or global tour. They're not afraid to pivot if it means growing their impact. They can abandon a successful path mid-stride if a more meaningful one appears. This can confuse those around them, who mistake the shift for inconsistency. But it's not, it's alignment. Gemini roosters are constantly seeking the most efficient, expressive, and electric path to fulfill their purpose. And when they find it, they go all in, with strategy, charisma, and an uncanny ability to pull others into the gravitational field of their vision. And the truth is, most of them will pull it off. Not because they're lucky, and not just because they're talented, but because they're relentless. Because they combine creative genius with an almost military-grade work ethic. Because they learn from failure, adapt fast, and never lose sight of their long game. They don't just dream, they design. They don't just want success, they want significance. They wake up every day with the question, how can I make this bigger? Smarter? More lasting? And they will keep asking it, refining it, until their name is etched not just in memory, but in meaning. For a Gemini rooster, life goals aren't about what they own. They're about what they leave behind. They're not chasing luxury. They're writing their legacy in real time, and the world will remember their name. So if you know a Gemini born in the year of the rooster, count yourself lucky. If you've got a Gemini rooster in your orbit, as a friend, a partner, a sibling, a colleague, you've struck a rare kind of gold. They're not like anyone else you've ever met, and they won't be like anyone else you meet again. These are the people who will shake up your worldview in a single conversation. They'll challenge your assumptions, ignite your curiosity, and drag you into ideas you never even knew existed. They make life bigger, louder, faster, funnier. Just being around them is a kind of education, in ambition, in confidence, in constant evolution. They see you, really see you, and when they choose you, as a confidant, collaborator, or companion, you'll feel it in your bones. It's electric, it's rare, and it's absolutely unforgettable. But with that brilliance comes a warning: don't try to cage them. Gemini roosters were not built for stillness. They are wired for motion. Mental, emotional, existential. The moment you try to trap them in predictability or slow them down with static rules, they will begin to disappear. Not always physically, but spiritually, their spark dims, their fire cools, their magic thins out. Control, to them, feels like a kind of slow death. They need the freedom to explore, the space to change, the trust to be many things at once. If you try to reduce them to one role, one version of themselves, you'll lose them. Because even in love, even in loyalty, even in long-term commitment, the Gemini rooster must feel free to fly. More than anything, don't bore them. That's not about entertainment, it's about energy. They need freshness like others need oxygen. Boredom is not a harmless phase for them, it's a creeping erosion of purpose. They want challenge, depth, growth. They want partners who surprise them, jobs that stretch them, lives that constantly reinvent themselves. Give them passion, give them novelty, give them a reason to stay curious. Because the moment life becomes routine and people stop asking big questions, the Gemini rooster starts looking for exits, intellectual, emotional, and sometimes physical. Not because they're unstable, but because they're wired to evolve or escape. They were never meant to live an ordinary life. Gemini roosters are, by design, built for the extraordinary. They are visionaries, disruptors, artists, leaders, rebels. They combine raw intellect with emotional complexity, charm with discipline, spontaneity with strategy. You can't define them, you can only witness their evolution. They don't follow the path, they design new ones. They don't just shine, they shift the light itself. Their existence is a fusion of contrast and contradiction, and somehow, that friction becomes brilliance. They weren't born to play it safe. They were born to leave fingerprints on the world. And if you are that Gemini rooster, then know this: the world isn't ready for you. Not for your speed, not for your vision, not for your voice that cuts through noise like a blade, not for the way you make life feel like a script that's still being written, and you're both the author and the main character. You're too much for some people, too intense, too quick, too curious, too real. Let them fall away. Because you're not here to be understood. You're here to make history. So go ahead, take the stage, change the rules, light the match, and take the world anyway.